What's up, 60s gang? This is Doug, your boy Doug, coming to you from home. Today is a day that I don't really want to talk about, but it's the truth. I'm on my way to Texas to pay my respects to my little cousin Bertram. As you know, in my previous reels, Bertram had an illness, and he succumbed to that illness last week. Well, I'm on my way to pay my respects to the family and to pay my respects to him. Bertram did visit my older sister. He attended her funeral services. I wasn't there. One of the reasons why I wasn't there is because I wanted to respect my older sister's funeral. But there was an individual there who disrespected the Monroe family name. My last name is Monroe. And there was an individual there that disrespected the Monroe's family name, and he had the audacity to attend my big sister's funeral. He came with someone that I couldn't stop from coming to the funeral because she was my aunt, and it was her significant other. And this individual was hated by my dad. And I knew if I would have went to my sister's funeral, I would have showed out and somebody would have went to jail. Because I do deeply believe my father hated this guy. I think he hated him so much that when he disrespected my family, I didn't know him as well, but I was a little kid at the time he disrespected my family. I was a little kid. But some of the vile words he said about the Monroe name struck me so hard that a rage came inside of me, as if it was my dad coming from the grave. He was like, I need you to knock the shit out of this motherfucker for me. It seemed like he was coming from the grave. He was letting me know that he needed me to destroy this guy. So when the funeral for my big sister came, I decided not to go in there out of respect for my big sister. I knew that the rage inside of me, I would have done something that would have showed out. It would have been on World Star Hip Hop, because I knew if I would have came in his presence that it was going to be on and popping. But out of respect for my sister, I didn't go. I stayed outside. I saw everybody in there that attended my big sister's funeral. I had saw my sister at the funeral home prior to the services and made my peace with her and said my goodbyes at the funeral home. But I remained on the outside, so I couldn't be in contact or in the presence of this individual who came with my aunt, which means I couldn't stop him from coming. But I knew if I would have went in there, it was going to be on and popping, because in this family, I was the one. And a lot of people in my family talk the talk, but none of them would walk the walk. And as I grew up, I was the one that was sitting in the corner, gathering all this shit in and seeing what people in my life was about. And I was the one that talked the talk and walked the walk. You hear me? I was walking the walk. That means when my family was in need, I wouldn't goddamn go to voicemail. I would show the fuck up. From wherever on the planet I would be, someone would call me and say, Doug, we need something. I was on and popping, because I believe in loyalty and the love of family, despite of what they think of me. These words was instilled in me by my grandma Earlene. As a young child growing up in Brooklyn, she raised all her grandbabies. She had the babysitters all because, our parents had to work. They was in their young 20s, and they was starting to establish themselves, but they had kids. So grandma kept all the grandbabies. And my first group of grandkids that grandma had, the first batch of grandkids my grandmother had was Dennis Ferguson, Carrie Ferguson, Sharon Monroe. Those were the first batch. The second batch of grandbabies came. It was Boogie Ferguson, boy, Dan Ferguson. Douglas Monroe, which is me, and William Ferguson, we call him Tulu. We'll get into that another day. Then the third batch of grandbabies came. It was my little sister, Lisa Monroe, Bertram Lewis, Cheryl Ferguson, and that was it. Then the next batch, it was Michelle Ferguson, Chris Ferguson, I might be missing, and I think it was, this Cheryl and Chris is the one ones I'm coming up with. And then after that came Aunt Lee's youngest girl. I can't recall her name. But despite anyway, we were always being babysat by Grandma Earlene. And Grandma Earlene was the glue of the family. What Grandma said went down. So the first batch of grandbabies and the second batch of grandbabies, we all was close together, separated by 1 or 2 years. So I used to hang out with Earlene, which was the head of the tribe, Grandma, while the other kids used to, y'all might have heard me mention that other kids used to run off and go play and do little stupid shit together, do little dumb stuff, but I used to stay back. If you remember my early reels, I told you my grandmamas is how I learned my game. Well, Earlene taught me how to do what I do. She taught me a lot, but she taught me one of the things called loyalty and love for your family, despite what they think of you. You stick together, you look after each other. And she instilled that into the very fabric of my being. And I carry that in me to this day. I'm 60 years old. I carried her message with me to this day. And she said, I'm going to repeat it. It's about the family. No matter what they think of you, despite what they think of you, you remain loyal and you love your family. So that's why I said I was the one. The rest of them, you call them in a time of need, nowhere to be found. But there was one grandbaby you could call, showed up every motherfucking time. When my aunts needed me to do something like babysit the other grandkids, or babysit my cousins like Bertram, or like the rest of the ones come up on them, I was there. That's one thing about me, my family couldn't take away that. I kept my word even as a little man. I think I was 8, 9 years old watching grandbabies. I was about the money, and I was about the loyalty, and I was about respecting and honoring my elders. I was all about that. But the words loyalty and love of the family was the very fabric of my being, despite what I became. Now, I'm 60 now, and I do recall I put this on my wife and my son's grave, that for 10 years, I kept talking to Bertram about coming to see him in Texas. I said, man, I'm getting up in my 50s now, man. We ain't getting no younger. I kept telling him I believe it was 2013. I said, man, we need to start seeing each other before we end up dead. Well, Bertram always had an excuse. 2013, he had an excuse. 2014, he had an excuse. 2015, he had an excuse. Bertram never even attempted to call and come see me. But his younger brother Barron came to see me. I got that on the wall in my garage where Barron came to see me and left me a message about how great time he had. Moving on to 2018, 2019, excuses. 2020, excuse. Bertram, I need to come and see you sometime, man. We getting old. Now I'm getting in my mid-50s, coming on into getting ready to get into my 60s. Bert, man, we need to see each other, man. He always had an excuse. 2021. Bert, I want to come to, where you at? You in San Antonio, Texas, or are you in Dallas, Texas? I can remember these conversations, but I'm keeping it short. But Bertram always had an excuse. January 2023. We had a discussion. He popped up on my Instagram. I'm having fun with my family in Orlando, and we went to Orlando, Cocoa Beach, and Miami in January. I'm all on Instagram with my grandbabies and stuff, and this nigga pop up on my Instagram talking that shit. You know, it's always shit talking when it comes to cousins, but this time it got real. I knew he was sick. He started yapping off with the mouth, talking about this and that. A lot of times we get into it about Trump because, you know, I like Trump. And I already told you in my previous videos why I like Trump. He don't like Trump. He don't know what he liked. But he didn't like what I liked and everything I thought about he had a problem with. So that's why we bumped heads a lot. I loved him, but our conversations became like this. So in January was really the last time I even had words with him, and that was over Instagram chat. And it was revealed to me why he kept avoiding me. He brought up the fact that I was a drug dealer. So fucking what? I'm your cousin. Spite what you think of me, see? I'm your cousin. And you should still love me and be loyal to me, spite what you think of me. Y'all remember that when it comes to family. It ain't what you think of them and what they do. It's not what you think of them. Because all thoughts, matter of fact, back that up. Thinking is the cousin of thoughts. Thoughts, whether good thoughts or bad thoughts, are lies all the time. So no matter what you think of me, it's a lie. Always remain loyal and love your family. That's the most important thing. Fuck what you thought. Fuck what you heard. Fuck what somebody say. You step up and you respect and love your family. I don't give a fuck if my cousin robbed a bank. If he called me, I'm there. Actually, my son used to steal and he used to talk shit about me. My own child. But then when his ass went to jail, who did he call? I was a drug dealer for damn near 59 years. Never got caught. I sold drugs from high school, through college, through midlife, through my senior years in my 50s. I slowed down on what I was dealing with. You know, you can imagine what I sold it. But at that time, I was kind of a low-key motherfucker. When I was in high school, I sold tray bags, nickel bags, dub sacks, half an ounce, ounces. Then I moved into powder, angel dust. Then the crack came around. I started being on the corner selling the 10 cent, 20 cent. Then I went from the corners to the Section 8 apartment complexes. Y'all know the ones, Section 8, where the brothers couldn't live in the houses. The women get to Section 8 for the kids. I started taking over territories like that. And what I was doing is I used to stand on the corner with the fellas, and we used to do our thing. But then something hit me. I was like, wait a minute. We dealing to all these women out here. Why don't I get good and get in good with one? So I went from off the street. This was my game change. Went off the street and became low-key, went in the house. Started watching soap operas with the women in those Section 8 houses. Because when I sat there watching All My Children, One Life to Live, the girlfriends was coming over and they was buying it while we was watching soap operas. So I used to do my thing while the fellas used to stand out in the cold. I'd be in their house watching All My Children, keeping warm. They giving me crack, doing what they want to do, what I want to do to them, if you know what I'm saying. I had fun while they was out there freezing. I was in there. And the women came in there and got what they wanted, and I just stayed in the house all the time. I got so good at it, so when I came outside, they used to talk about, hey, somebody out here got it going on. And I used to have a fire back in the 80s, from 82 to 88. I had a Colombian plug, raw. That shit, when I used to cook it in the barrel, it was red. That, you know, the water be red after I cook it. That's how pure it was. And I had infiltrated those Section 8 houses with that shit. And I got so good with it So I used to come in with a maxi coat, and it'd be full, quarters, halves. And I used to go to the women because when I went to that one woman's house and they used to all come over, I started recruiting the women. And then I would have quarters and halves on me, and I would come into the neighborhood with my maxi coat, looked like Shad. Yes, I did. And I used to come in there and I used to drop them off. Like 4 or 5 women at a time, and they used to lock the neighborhood down and had them niggas standing out there still holding 20-cent rocks and trying to figure out why they couldn't sell because I had locked the women down. I was dealing with the women. And then I'd go out there and stand next to them. I got so good, I used to stand next to them. And they used to say, damn, somebody, man, got some good shit out there, man. We ain't selling nothing. And I used to sit right there with them. I used to say, yeah, man, I heard about that shit, man. And they said, yeah, they said that nigga got some good shit. They didn't even know it was me. And I would say, yeah, man, I used to hear the same thing. That nigga got the fire, man. I don't know who he is. And I used to sit right there with him, and it'd be me the whole damn time. I was that low key. I wore a little bit of jewelry, and I stayed low key. I didn't come out there brash, flash. I came in that motherfucker, them Section 8 low-income housing areas, and I sold my dope to the women, and then I picked up my money. And then I left. And you could never tell it was me. Matter of fact, I'll be standing next to you and you wouldn't even know I was the one running and shit. That's how low profile I was. And I did that. I graduated from high school in the 80s. I was selling weed and LSD. Then when I got to college, I was selling weed, powder cocaine. They were lacing that shit back in the 80s. Then when I got out of college in 1982, that rock hit. And I used to run it from Atlanta to Charlotte to Greensboro to Fayetteville. I had to run that big, all Section 8, where I would come to those towns and just unload on the women. Because the women is what was all about. The niggas was coming to town to get high with the women, so I put the women on. Fucking nigga, like I told you. My daddy said all a brother can do for you is get in your motherfucking way. And when I took that in, I was like, okay, shit, I'm working with the women. And I blew up. But, you know, as in every drug, there's a life, you have your ups and the downs. At the same time I was blowing up, I would make money. I would spend it just as fast as I was making it. I had hospital bills with my wife. She had health conditions, or something would happen where I would have no job. And I'll be in between jobs, and I had to hustle to pay the bills. I had to hustle to pay the medical bills. I had to hustle to feed the family. I had to hustle to put clothes on the back. I had to hustle to get a job. One time I had no license, and I had to hustle to get the license to get the job. So I had to do what I had to do because nobody was helping me do it. So getting back to Bertram, in that discussion in January, the last discussion I had with him on Instagram, it was revealed to me that he had a problem with me being a drug dealer. I said, oh, that's what it's all about. You was avoiding me because I was a drug dealer, and you felt a certain, here we go, you felt a certain way. Despite what I am, he felt a certain way about me, so he didn't want to had no parts. He didn't want no part of me because the way he felt. And despite how you feel, it's about love and loyalty. Grandma said, it's about the family no matter what you think of me. Thinking is the cousin of thoughts. All thoughts, good or bad, are lies all the time. And that's the very fabric. I couldn't give a fuck about what was my cousin doing or what my uncles were doing, whether good or bad. Some of them, one of them was a pimp. I didn't care. I didn't judge him. But Bertram did. It's all about family. Despite what you think. Thinking is just a thought. And all thoughts, good or bad, are lies all the time. This is from my grandmother. As the other grandkids used to hang outside and go run around, play games and shit, I used to sit up under grandma. Because grandma used to play cards and sell canned beer, slit smoked liquor beer, especially slits, Coke 45, cigarettes. She used to sell Lucy's. She was hustling. That's when I used to sit around her, and I was gaining. That's how I got that game, watching grandma. That's how I learned. And then one day, she showed me what she meant about the love and loyalty for family. The first time I saw it firsthand was my Uncle Walter. He got a job. By this time, I was still too young. I ain't know what kind of job he had. But he was a Golden Glove boxer, and he had a job. And one day, he was coming home I guess he got off the train off Atlantic Avenue. He got off Atlantic Avenue and started walking up Albany Avenue. He's trying to get to Dean Street. So I think some people who knew of my uncle knew he got paid. And they began to try to mug him. So Uncle Walter began to run from Albany. He ran from Albany Avenue trying to get to the corner of Dean Street. We lived on Dean Street. Grandma lived on Dean Street. So he running up Albany Avenue. He got to Dean Street. He had to make that hard left. But when he got to the corner of Dean Street, there was a mailbox there. And when he turned that left, them guys caught him and slammed him up against that mailbox. They hit him so hard that it made a noise. And back then, Grandma wouldn't let us outside. We had to stay on the fire escape, and Grandma stayed on the top floor. And we used to hang out on the fire escape and used to look down and see the whole street. And so when they hit Uncle Walter against that mailbox, it made such a noise that I looked. And the first thing he said was, "Mom!" Ain't that what we all do? The first thing a brother do when they get you, "Mom!" He yelled out, "Mom!" in such a way that the voice of Mom rang right up them stairs, and Grandma heard it. And Grandma grabbed the phone. Back then it was plugged in. She picked up the phone and she said something. I'll never forget it. They done robbed them by now. People started running down there to pick up Walter. The guys done ran off. But no more than 5 minutes later, the Ferguson family started coming out of nowhere. They started turning the corner with cars. They were walking from this side of the block, that side. They was coming out the fucking cracks and crevices on them street, on Dean Street and Albany Avenue by Mr. Ben's bodega. They came out of nowhere. It looked like an outdoor concert. And back in those days, I think it was 1967, before King died. Man, they fought with chains and swords and pistols and bats back then. Man, they came out with all this shit. It looked like an outdoor fucking concert. It was so many Fergusons that came out, spite of what they thought of Uncle Walter. The love and the loyalty for Uncle Walter came out that day, and I swear to God, I saw that shit. I said, Grandma made one motherfucking phone call, and all these motherfuckers came out. And when they came out, whatever Walter told them, they acted on it, and they went door to door to door to block until they found them motherfuckers. And every door they knocked on, if them motherfuckers wouldn't answer the questions that they asked, woo, they put a whooping on them motherfuckers' ass. This is facts. That was the first time that I saw love and loyalty. The first time. The second time came when my Uncle Johnny came home from Vietnam. He came back with a monkey, the heroin monkey was on his back, and he came back from Vietnam addicted. And that was the second time Grandma showed me. Now back then, they was talking about Uncle Johnny this and Uncle Johnny that, and Uncle Johnny, everybody had an opinion about Uncle Johnny. One day, Uncle Johnny was laid out on Dean Street from a heroin overdose. And back then, I was still up on that fire escape, and I was able to see, and I looked down there, and I saw him laying on his back, Uncle Johnny laying on his back. See, I'm pulling this shit out of my head. I'm a kid. Kids don't forget. I said, Grandma, Uncle Johnny laying on his back, and they going through his pockets and robbing him. And Grandma snatched me up. We went down the stairs, and we went down there, and Uncle Johnny was laid out on his back from a heroin overdose. And they was going through his pockets, taking anything they had. Now, despite of what the family thought of him, we picked him up and brought him home and carried him up them stairs. And then the rest of the family showed up and they took care of him from them. But that was 2 times where I saw with my own eyes what it meant to be loyal and have love and loyalty for your family. And I put that in my very fabric. So when I had saw that, that's the day, that's the time I became the one. When I saw how them motherfuckers came together, despite of what they thought of them, Uncle Walter and Uncle Johnny, I said, that's me. I said, whenever motherfucker called me, I'm going to be there. So I became the one. I became like them. So whenever my auntie needed somebody to babysit, nobody else would do it. Whenever a cousin got beat up, one time my late cousin Tulu, something happened to him. He was living in North Carolina. By that time, I was in Georgia. My big sister said, "Darren, you need to get up here. Tulu done got beat up." I drove from Georgia all the way to North Fayetteville, North Carolina. I showed the fuck up for my cousin, in spite of what they thought of him. Tulu was gay. Okay? And the gay boy, he had a fight with another gay boy and beat him up. And my big sister called me because nobody else would come because they had a special way. They had thoughts about him. You know how people, what Grandma said, she said, despite what they felt a certain way about him. So nobody came to his aid. So I drove all the way from North Carolina up there. And I ran into the boys that beat him up. And by myself, I beat them all up. I put one in the garbage can. And then they had the audacity to lock me up for beating up 2 gay guys for beating up my gay cousin. I was the one that showed up. I wasn't the one that was talking the talk and not walking the walk. I was talking the talk and I was walking the walk. I sold drugs for 57 years. Never got caught because I wasn't trying to be seen like a lot of you niggas do. That's why y'all end up in jail. Y'all advertise too fucking much. But I did it for 57 years. Never got busted. I recently stopped because they started putting fentanyl in the weed. I stopped selling crack cocaine in 2000 I think it was 2007, 2008. I just stopped. It just wasn't. They moved on. Crack wasn't cracking. By that time, older people my age was the only ones selling it. The younger crowd moved on. Crack wasn't crack. So I stopped the crack and I just started doing the weed. And then I stopped the weed. This is recently as last year because they started spraying the weed with fentanyl. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out the game. And that's facts. So for 10 years I tried to go see Bertram and I was like, man, we getting old, man. We need to see each other before one of us dead. So you see me today, it's 2:45 in the morning. I'm waiting on my lift. I'm on my way to Texas because I'm finally going to go see my cousin. After 10 years of trying to see him, I'm on my way to go see my cousin. And guess what? One of us is dead. Is that how it's going to be, Chris? Dennis? How many of us left? Boogie, he stayed in and out of jail, so I know where he at. But it's only Dennis, me, Boogie, Chris, Brandon, Melissa, Byron. We gonna play this game. We gonna just see each other when it's time for us to go to the funeral, like I'm ready to go do now. The last time I talked to Bertram was in January 2023. It's April 30th, 2023. and one of us is dead. You hear what I'm saying, people? This shit's real. Life ain't no joke. It's that motherfucking fast. And it's not Six Flags like you can get back in line and get back on the roller coaster. When you get in the line of life, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down, then you get off. You can't get back in line. This is not King Dominion. God don't play. When he take you off that roller coaster, you cannot get back in line. So y'all need to goddamn stop what you're thinking about your family members. It's not what you think. Despite what you think, you are to love and to remain loyal to your family until your dying day. This is Doug, 60 Gang, and I'm out.